You've been told you're eating healthy. You've been praised for choosing smart foods. You followed the labels, trusted the packaging, believed the promises, yet somehow you're gaining weight, losing energy, craving more, and feeling worse. And here's the shocking truth. It's not your fault, because the very foods marketed as healthy, light, natural, and low fat are silently training your body to do one thing: store fat and resist insulin. Most people wake up every morning believing that the foods they choose are helping them. They reach for the bowl of cereal, the fruit smoothie, the low fat yogurt, thinking they are making the right choices, believing that these healthy options are keeping them fit, energized, and alive. But the shocking truth is far more insidious. What if the very foods you've been told are good for you are silently teaching your body to resist itself? What if the healthy choices that you thought were protective are actually undermining your metabolism and fueling the very problems you want to avoid? Every bite you take sends a message to your cells. Your bloodstream becomes the messenger. Your hormones respond. Every ingredient, every molecule, every combination of sugar, fiber, and processed additive communicates instructions to your body, telling it how to respond, what to store, and how to regulate energy. And the problem is that most healthy foods have been engineered, processed, or modified in ways that disguise their true metabolic impact. Your cells can sense this, even if your mind cannot. Insulin is the master regulator. It is the hormone that decides whether energy is stored or burned, whether fat is kept or released, whether your organs thrive or struggle. And many of the so-called healthy foods trigger this hormone more than you would expect. A bowl of oatmeal, a granola bar, a fruit juice, even certain whole grains. Each has the potential to flood your blood with sugar at a pace your body isn't prepared for. And when this happens repeatedly, day after day, your cells become numb to the signal. They stop responding to insulin properly. They resist the very hormone that was designed to regulate them. Imagine your pancreas working overtime, trying to keep up with every spike of sugar. It produces more insulin. Your body adapts to survive. Your fat cells hoard energy. Your muscles and liver cells grow resistant. Your blood vessels, your heart, your brain all feel the subtle consequences. This is not an immediate catastrophe. It's a slow, quiet betrayal happening behind the scenes. It is stealth. It is invisible. It is the kind of damage that whispers while the world congratulates you for eating healthy. And while this silent process unfolds, your cravings grow louder. Your energy dips. Your weight shifts in directions you never expected. You wonder why your morning smoothie leaves you starving 2 hours later, why your carefully planned meal doesn't bring satisfaction, why the scale doesn't move despite your efforts. It's because your body has learned to expect constant spikes of sugar. Even from foods marketed as beneficial, it has learned to resist. It has learned to adapt to a pattern of hidden metabolic sabotage. The real tragedy is that this cycle is not obvious. The signs are subtle: brain fog, midday fatigue, stubborn weight, mood swings, and minor digestive issues. All are quietly accumulating evidence that your metabolism is no longer functioning optimally. And yet the labels say healthy, natural, whole grain, low fat. Marketing has weaponized trust. It has turned what should be nourishment into a silent trigger for dysfunction. Scientists studying this phenomenon were shocked at how often these foods caused metabolic responses as strong or stronger than obvious junk food. They discovered that the glycemic load, the combination of refined fibers, sugars, and additives, the very processing that makes a food shelf-stable and marketable, primes the body for insulin resistance. The body, forced into constant management mode, gradually loses sensitivity. Cells stop listening. Hormones misfire. And the longer this goes on, the more difficult it becomes to reverse. Yet it is not hopeless. The first step is awareness. Understanding that the problem is not laziness, willpower, or a lack of motivation. The problem is biological. The problem is chemical. The problem is subtle, insidious, and hidden in foods that are falsely celebrated as beneficial. When you see the truth, when you realize that your healthy choices may be undermining your metabolism, you gain the power to act. You gain the ability to make selections that honor the biology within you, to feed cells that are eager to repair, to nourish organs that are ready to thrive. This knowledge changes everything. Because once you understand the mechanics, the hormonal spikes, the cellular resistance, the quiet betrayal, you begin to see your meals differently. You begin to see that not all healthy foods are equal, that labels and appearances do not guarantee metabolic safety. that your body responds to real nutrient-dense, minimally processed foods in ways that restore sensitivity, reduce inflammation, and optimize energy. Every decision matters, every meal matters, every bite is a conversation with your cells. And the moment you realize that one simple choice can begin to undo years of metabolic sabotage, you gain leverage, you gain control, you start choosing foods that teach your cells to listen again, that honor insulin signal, that restore harmony to your energy systems, and that rebuild your health from the ground up. This is why awareness is the first step. Because until you see the invisible damage being done by healthy foods, you remain trapped in a cycle that looks productive on the surface, but is quietly destructive beneath. Once you recognize it, the door opens. The biology can be restored. The insulin resistance can begin to reverse. And the foods you eat can finally work for you, not against you. It is not a battle of discipline or willpower. It is a battle of knowledge, awareness, and choice. And the most profound realization is that the moment you begin to feed your body with intention, to honor the signals it sends and to avoid the hidden triggers, everything begins to shift. Your energy stabilizes, your cravings weaken, your weight management becomes natural, your mood brightens, your organs breathe freely. You start to understand that healthy is not what the label says. Healthy is what your body feels. Healthy is what your cells respond to. And when you start aligning your choices with true metabolic intelligence, the hidden pattern of insulin resistance begins to unravel quietly, powerfully, and visibly over time. Once you understand that the foods you've trusted as healthy may be harming you, the next question naturally arises. How exactly does this happen? The mechanisms are both fascinating and alarming. Every chemical reaction, every spike of blood sugar, every insulin response has a story, and the story these so-called healthy foods tell is one of subtle sabotage. The moment sugar, starch, or refined carbohydrates enter your bloodstream, your body reacts immediately. Insulin, the master key, unlocks the cells to allow glucose in for energy. In a perfect system, this process is elegant, efficient, and fleeting. But when the foods you eat repeatedly flood your bloodstream too quickly, insulin is forced to overcompensate. The pancreas produces more than necessary. Your cells, overwhelmed by the constant deluge, start to shut down. They stop responding to insulin the way they once did. This is insulin resistance, a quiet rebellion by your own cells, a biological protest against the very foods you thought were helping. It is not just sugar that causes this. Some healthy foods are processed in ways that make them deceptively potent. Whole grains, oat-based cereals, granola bars, packaged fruit snacks. They appear wholesome, but the fiber is often finely ground, the sugar is subtly added, the natural fat stripped away. These manipulations change the rate at which glucose enters your blood. Your body experiences spikes and crashes, a roller coaster that your brain perceives as a need for more fuel. The pancreas works overtime, the cells grow weary, and the cycle of resistance accelerates. Insulin resistance does not manifest overnight. It creeps quietly like water eroding stone. Early signs are subtle: energy fluctuations, sugar cravings, brain fog, difficulty losing weight, stubborn belly fat, or feeling tired even after adequate sleep. Most people dismiss these signs as normal aging or poor lifestyle choices, unaware that the culprit is not a lack of effort, but the very healthy foods they consume. Every day they believe they are protecting their metabolism, but in reality they are conditioning it to fail. The consequences ripple far beyond weight management. Insulin is not just a sugar regulator. It governs the way your body stores fat, how your organs respond to energy, and even how your brain communicates with your muscles. Resistance changes hormonal balance. It increases inflammation. It stresses the liver. It weakens the immune system. It subtly rewires metabolism, making future damage harder to reverse. Over months and years, the body becomes trapped in a state of chronic stress, never reaching its full potential, never functioning with clarity or efficiency. What scientists have discovered is both enlightening and alarming. Many foods marketed as safe or beneficial actually trigger insulin responses comparable to, or sometimes even higher than, obvious junk food. Low-fat yogurts, diet bars, fruit juices, whole wheat bread, all commonly thought of as healthy, contain hidden sugars, refined starches, or flavor additives that create a physiological trap. On the surface, you feel virtuous. On the inside, your cells are rebelling. This is the metabolic deception most people never see coming. The body is intelligent. It always tries to adapt. When cells stop responding to insulin, the pancreas compensates by producing more. Blood sugar may remain relatively stable for a while, giving you the illusion of normality. But underneath, your metabolism is under siege. The constant high insulin environment favors fat storage, particularly in the abdominal region, while the muscles and liver struggle to utilize glucose efficiently. Energy feels unpredictable. Hunger grows louder. Cravings become relentless. And slowly, silently, your risk of chronic disease increases. Understanding the science behind this hidden mechanism gives you a powerful tool: awareness. Once you see how subtle sugar spikes and hidden refined carbs manipulate insulin, you can begin to break the cycle. You realize that even foods labeled whole or natural may not be metabolically neutral. Every bite has a consequence. Every meal is an instruction manual for your cells. Choosing carefully is not an option, it is survival. The remarkable thing is that the body is forgiving. Once the triggers are removed or minimized, insulin sensitivity can improve, energy levels stabilize, fat metabolism resumes, inflammation decreases, the brain feels sharper, the cells that once resisted signals now respond again. This reversal is not hypothetical, it is measurable and tangible, a testament to the body's inherent ability to heal when given the right signals. The first step toward this transformation is knowledge. Understanding that your metabolism is being manipulated by foods you thought were safe opens the door to change. It shifts the perspective from blame to empowerment. You no longer need to rely on willpower alone. You now know the underlying science. You understand that insulin resistance is a biological response, not a personal failing. And with this understanding, you can start making deliberate strategic choices that retrain your body to respond properly, that restore harmony to your energy systems, and that gradually dismantle the cycle of resistance. Every meal becomes an opportunity. Every choice becomes a signal. Every ingredient carries a message. And the moment you realize that you have control over the internal conversation of your cells, the fear, confusion, and frustration start to fade. You start to see your metabolism not as a fixed destiny, but as a responsive, adaptive system capable of healing, thriving, and regaining balance. Once the mechanisms are understood, the invisible trap becomes visible. You can see the hidden forces of insulin resistance and how carefully engineered foods exploit them. You begin to anticipate and navigate them. You gain leverage over your own biology, and the power to create lasting, meaningful change becomes real and achievable. Now that you understand the subtle betrayal occurring within your body, the natural question arises: which foods are secretly fueling this problem? The answer is more surprising than most people expect. These culprits do not come in neon packaging, screaming danger. They hide behind labels that promise health, vitality, and wellness. They masquerade as the allies of your metabolism while quietly sabotaging the very systems you rely on to survive and thrive. It begins with perception. We are taught to associate certain foods with virtue. Whole grains, fruit juices, low-fat snacks, granola bars, and even certain cereals are marketed as the pillars of a healthy lifestyle. But the body does not respond to marketing, it responds to chemistry. And the chemistry of many of these so-called healthy foods tells a very different story. When consumed, they release glucose into the bloodstream at rates your pancreas struggles to manage. Insulin surges. Cells experience stress. Receptors begin to dull. Resistance builds. What makes this phenomenon so insidious is that it feels normal. You eat a breakfast you believe is good for you and feel briefly satisfied, but a few hours later, your energy crashes, cravings emerge, your brain signals for more sugar, your body begins to chase a stability it no longer has. And yet, you don't blame the healthy meal. You think you are doing the right thing. You do not realize that the very act of eating is a form of metabolic training, and your cells are being conditioned to resist. Take, for example, the low-fat craze that swept the world. Removing fat from foods was supposed to make them healthier, lighter, more metabolically friendly. But in practice, manufacturers replace fat with sugar, refined starches, and additives to preserve taste. The result: foods that spike insulin more than full-fat alternatives. A single healthy snack can provoke the same metabolic response as a candy bar, yet we continue to consume them with a sense of righteousness, believing we are protecting our bodies. The body, however, does not lie. It records every spike, every surge, every deviation from balance, and over time, resistance deepens. Fruit juices, even fresh or 100% natural ones, are another silent offender. A glass of juice may seem harmless, even virtuous, but the sugar is delivered in liquid form, bypassing the slow digestion that whole fruit provides. The liver is forced to process a sudden flood of glucose. Insulin spikes, fat storage is triggered, cravings intensify, the pancreas strains, and once again, the cells learn to ignore the very hormone that should regulate energy efficiently. Even whole grains, often celebrated for fiber and heart health, can be problematic when processed. Rolled oats, wheat breads, and breakfast cereals are often ground too fine or cooked extensively, making the carbohydrates rapidly digestible. The glucose enters your bloodstream faster than your metabolism can handle, and the chain reaction begins. Insulin rises, cells become less responsive, fat storage increases, and energy balance deteriorates. The pattern is universal. Foods marketed as beneficial often contain hidden accelerants for insulin resistance. They are engineered to appeal to taste, texture, and convenience while subtly overriding the body's natural regulation. And because the effects are gradual and invisible, people continue eating these foods, believing they are healthy, while their metabolism slowly deteriorates in the background. Over time, the consequences become impossible to ignore. Weight gain accumulates, particularly around the abdomen. Energy becomes unpredictable. Cravings grow insatiable. Brain fog clouds thought processes. Mood fluctuates. Digestion becomes irregular. And underlying it all, the pancreas works harder and harder to compensate, struggling to maintain glucose homeostasis. The damage is cumulative, silent, and relentless.
But here is the paradox. These foods are not evil. They are not malicious. They were designed to appeal to human desire, to provide taste, texture, and convenience.
The problem lies in the disconnect between appearance and biological reality. The body interprets the chemical signals, not the branding. And if those signals are misaligned with metabolic health, the result is resistance, dysfunction, and long-term damage. The insight here is empowering. Once the hidden culprits are recognized, the path forward becomes clear. Awareness is the first form of intervention. Understanding that insulin resistance can be quietly fueled by foods labeled healthy gives you the ability to anticipate, adjust, and reclaim control. Every meal becomes an opportunity to teach your cells the response you want: stability, balance, and sensitivity, rather than forcing them to defend against hidden assaults. Science shows that reversing insulin resistance is possible. It requires strategy, knowledge, and consistency, but it is not mysterious. Foods that stabilize glucose, minimize insulin spikes, and provide nutrient density can retrain your metabolism. They calm inflammation, restore cellular responsiveness, and rebuild energy systems from the ground up. And the moment you recognize the hidden triggers, you gain leverage over the process. Understanding which foods sabotage and which foods restore is transformative. It shifts your perspective from blame to empowerment. You no longer feel trapped by your biology. You see the invisible forces that shape your metabolism and can navigate them intentionally. Each meal becomes a tool. Each choice becomes a signal. Each ingredient becomes a message to your cells: respond, repair, thrive. The body is remarkably forgiving. When you remove the hidden triggers and replace them with stabilizing, nourishing alternatives, insulin sensitivity begins to return. Fat storage normalizes, energy stabilizes, cravings weaken, inflammation decreases, the brain functions more efficiently. Every system begins to respond as it was designed to, quietly, powerfully, and measurably. This is the power of seeing behind the label. This is the power of understanding the hidden mechanisms of insulin resistance. The foods you trusted may have been working against you, but once revealed, the path to reclaiming your health is in your hands. And once you start choosing wisely, the transformation begins immediately, even before you feel it fully, because your cells respond to clarity, precision, and the right signals faster than you ever imagined. Understanding insulin resistance requires a look beneath the surface into the intricate dance of hormones, cells, and metabolism that most people never notice. Every meal you consume sets off a cascade of chemical reactions that your body responds to instantly. Some responses are beneficial, guiding energy efficiently to the muscles and organs. Others, especially from healthy foods that are deceptively processed or sugar-laden, create subtle chaos that goes unnoticed for years. This chaos quietly rewires metabolism, changing the way cells communicate, store energy, and maintain balance. When glucose enters the bloodstream too quickly, Insulin surges to manage the excess. For a short while, the system functions, but repeated spikes teach cells to ignore insulin signals. Muscle tissue becomes sluggish in glucose uptake. Fat cells sensing danger hoard energy, signaling the body to store more than it burns. The liver begins producing more glucose than necessary, adding to the chaos. This is not a sudden disaster. It is an adaptive response, a survival mechanism that over time becomes destructive. Inside each cell, insulin receptors act like locks on a door. When the key of insulin fits smoothly, glucose enters, fueling energy production and maintaining balance. When these locks are jammed from repeated overstimulation, glucose can no longer enter efficiently. Cells begin to starve despite an abundance of sugar in the bloodstream.
The pancreas compensates by producing more insulin, creating a hormonal environment where fat storage is prioritized, energy availability fluctuates, and inflammation quietly rises.
Inflammation is a crucial yet often invisible player in this process. Low-grade chronic inflammation is like a smoldering fire in your organs, arteries, and tissues. It signals stress to the cells, alters hormonal communication, and makes insulin resistance worse. The very foods marketed as healthy can contribute to this inflammation by spiking blood sugar, producing oxidative stress, and altering gut microbiota. The gut, home to trillions of microorganisms, is a hidden regulator of metabolism, and when its balance is disrupted, insulin resistance accelerates. Beneficial bacteria that support glucose metabolism die off, while harmful bacteria thrive, sending inflammatory signals that further interfere with cellular sensitivity. Hormonal imbalances compound the problem. Leptin, the hormone that regulates hunger and satiety, becomes less effective, causing cravings and overeating. Cortisol, the stress hormone, rises as the body interprets frequent sugar spikes as stress signals. Ghrelin, the hunger hormone, sends false alarms. The result is a perfect storm where energy crashes, appetite spikes, and metabolism slows, all while your cells resist insulin's instructions. Even the brain suffers. Neurons rely on glucose for energy, but when insulin resistance develops, glucose utilization becomes erratic. Cognitive function dips, mood fluctuates, mental clarity diminishes, fatigue sets in, the body's attempt to regulate energy efficiently is disrupted, and the effects are systemic, felt in every muscle, organ, and gland. This is why insulin resistance is often called a silent epidemic. It begins quietly, affects nearly every system in the body, and can persist unnoticed for years. What is remarkable is how fast the body can respond once the triggers are removed. When meals are chosen to stabilize blood sugar, reduce insulin spikes, and provide nutrient-dense support, cellular sensitivity begins to return. Fat cells no longer hoard energy aggressively. Muscle and liver tissue begin to respond again. Inflammation diminishes. Hormones recalibrate. Energy becomes predictable. Cravings subside. The brain sharpens. Even the gut microbiome begins to recover, restoring communication pathways that support metabolism, immunity, and mood. The body is adaptive, not stubborn. Insulin resistance is a response to repeated environmental stressors, particularly diet. It is not permanent. Cells are capable of remembering sensitivity. Once the overload is reduced, every meal becomes a signal that either reinforces resistance or restores function. The minute you begin feeding your cells the right combination of nutrients, the process of reversal starts. It does not require perfection, just consistent awareness and deliberate choices. Science has shown that certain nutrient-dense foods, low in refined carbohydrates and rich in fiber, healthy fats, and bioactive compounds, can directly support insulin sensitivity. They reduce oxidative stress, calm inflammation, balance hormones, and feed the beneficial gut bacteria that regulate metabolism. These foods act as messages to the cells, telling them to respond, repair, and thrive. Every bite has the potential to restore communication between insulin and its receptors, reestablishing control over blood sugar and energy flow. This is why awareness is so crucial. Recognizing the hidden mechanisms of insulin resistance, the way certain foods spike insulin, inflame tissues, and disrupt cellular communication, empowers you to make intentional changes. The body is not passive. It responds immediately to the instructions you provide through food. Every meal is either a step toward deeper resistance or a step toward metabolic clarity and vitality. The deeper truth is that this system is not designed to fail. Cells want to respond. Organs want to function efficiently. The body wants balance. Insulin resistance is a survival adaptation gone awry due to the mismatch between modern diets and the biology we inherited. When you remove the mismatch, restore clarity, and feed the body intelligently, sensitivity returns, energy stabilizes, and long-term health can be regained. Once these cellular and hormonal pathways are understood, the path to reversing insulin resistance becomes obvious. It is not magic, it is science. It is biology. It is predictable, measurable, and responsive. The moment you begin to align your food choices with your body's true needs, the processes that once undermined you begin to heal themselves quietly, consistently, and powerfully. Everything you have learned so far leads to one undeniable truth. The power to reverse insulin resistance, reclaim energy, and restore balance is within your grasp. The body is intelligent. It responds instantly to the messages you send it through food. Every choice you make either reinforces the hidden damage or becomes a step toward healing. And the beauty of this system is that it is forgiving. The moment you begin giving the right signals, transformation begins often before you even feel it. It starts with awareness. Recognizing the hidden traps in foods you have trusted as healthy is the first critical step. Knowledge itself is action. When you understand that a granola bar, a low-fat yogurt, or a glass of fruit juice can trigger metabolic chaos, you no longer eat blindly. You begin to see the patterns, the subtle biochemical signals that dictate energy, fat storage, inflammation, and hormonal balance. Awareness turns confusion into clarity. It transforms habits into strategy. It makes you a participant in your own biology instead of a victim of it. Next comes intention. Awareness without action is only theory. Each meal, each bite is a deliberate signal to your cells. Foods that are low in refined sugars, rich in fiber, abundant in healthy fats, and dense in nutrients communicate to your insulin receptors. Respond, engage, rebuild, restore. The muscles and liver that once resisted glucose suddenly begin accepting it again. Fat cells stop hoarding energy and start releasing it for fuel. Hormones recalibrate. Inflammation diminishes. Energy stabilizes. Cravings weaken. Your body begins to operate as it was designed to, with intelligence, balance, and purpose. The transformation extends beyond the physical. When your metabolism functions efficiently, your mind sharpens. Mental fog clears. Mood stabilizes, decision-making improves, motivation returns. You are no longer battling internal chaos. Your body becomes a supportive partner, supplying steady energy, clear signals, and reliable stamina. Every system, from your brain to your gut to your heart, starts to function in harmony, and you experience what it feels like to be truly aligned with your biology. This is where consistency becomes vital. One meal can be a signal, but repeated actions build momentum. The body adapts to repeated patterns, both destructive and constructive. By consistently choosing foods that support insulin sensitivity, you retrain your cells. You reduce the constant spikes of insulin, you lower chronic inflammation, you balance hormones that govern appetite, stress, and energy distribution. With each intentional choice, your metabolism becomes more responsive, more efficient, and more resilient. The gut plays a hidden yet pivotal role. Trillions of microorganisms reside there, acting as silent regulators of metabolism, immunity, and even mood. When you consume foods that are nutrient dense and minimally processed, these microbial allies flourish. They produce compounds that reduce inflammation, improve glucose metabolism, and strengthen the signaling between insulin and cells. A healthy gut is the foundation of a responsive, adaptive body. When it thrives, the effects ripple outward, reinforcing balance and amplifying the benefits of every other choice you make. Equally important is the understanding that reversing insulin resistance is not about perfection. It is about deliberate, informed progression. The body does not demand extremes. It does not require deprivation or punishment. It demands clarity. It requires foods that align with its biology, consistency in their application, and patience as the systems recalibrate. Energy, focus, and metabolic harmony do not arrive all at once, but with each meal chosen wisely, the transformation accelerates. Stress management and movement complement the dietary shifts. Physical activity enhances insulin sensitivity by making muscles more receptive to glucose. Movement signals to the body that energy should be utilized, not stored. Stress, in contrast, elevates cortisol, which can worsen insulin resistance. Combined mindful nutrition, consistent movement, and stress reduction create an environment in which insulin resistance cannot thrive. Your body begins to restore its natural rhythm, and metabolic balance becomes achievable and sustainable. The most profound realization is that the body is not passive, it is responsive. It is constantly listening. It is interpreting every bite, every nutrient, every habit, every emotion, and every decision. When you feed it intentionally, it does not negotiate or question, it responds. Cells repair, receptors awaken, fat stores release energy, energy stabilizes, inflammation fades, hormones normalize, mental clarity emerges, and a sense of vitality returns. You are literally instructing your biology to operate at peak function. This is why knowledge without action is insufficient. Insight alone is a spark. Action, repeated with purpose, is fire. The minute you begin applying these principles, the trajectory of your health begins to shift. Insulin sensitivity improves, energy stabilizes, cravings diminish, weight management becomes manageable, and the systems of your body align. You regain control over what was once silently undermining you. You step into a life where food fuels resilience rather than resistance, where metabolism serves you instead of betraying you, where vitality is not an aspiration, but a lived reality. The transformation is empowering because it is evidence-based. It is measurable, observable, and tangible. The body does not lie. It responds consistently to the inputs you provide. Every nutrient-dense meal, every reduction in refined sugar, every movement, and every mindful choice strengthens this response. The trajectory of your health is in your hands, and with clarity, intention, and consistency, you can reclaim control over your metabolism, your energy, your mind, and ultimately your life.